I first saw the truck around 3 a.m., sitting there, in the middle of the highway. No hazards, no running lights, just parked, waiting. I'd been on the road for 10 hours straight, pushing to make it to my next stop before sunrise. The stretch of highway I was on was dead empty. No towns, no signs of life, just miles of darkness. That's why it caught my attention. A fully loaded semi, parked right in the middle of the road. No movement inside. No driver in sight. It shouldn't have been there, and yet, it was. I slowed my rig, flicking on my high beams. The truck's cab was completely dark. The trailer doors were shut tight. Everything about it seemed normal, except for the fact that it was blocking the damn highway with no one around. I grabbed my CB radio. Anyone near mile marker 219? Got an abandoned semi blocking the road. No driver in sight. Static. Then, a voice. He's still in there. My stomach twisted. The voice was faint, distorted, like someone whispering through a dying speaker. I swallowed hard, gripping the mic. Who is this? What do you mean? More static. Then, don't get out. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but black road stretching behind me. I turned my attention back to the silent, empty truck. I should have driven away, but something pulled at me. A gnawing curiosity. A deep, uneasy feeling that I had to check. Had to see for myself. I killed my engine. Stepped out into the night. The air was wrong. Heavy. Thick. Like the moment before a thunderstorm. I made my way toward the driver's side door. Every step felt heavier. Like something was pushing against me. Warning me. I reached the door. It was unlocked. I pulled it open, and immediately wished I hadn't. The cab was empty, but it didn't feel empty. The driver's seat was pulled forward, like someone had just been sitting there. The dashboard was still warm. The keys were in the ignition, but the engine was off. A half-empty coffee cup sat in the holder. A CB radio dangled from the dashboard, still transmitting faint static. And on the passenger seat, a red envelope. My heart pounded. I reached for the envelope with shaking hands. The paper felt warm. I peeled it open. Inside was a single note, written in small, careful handwriting. He's still in here. I staggered back. The air in the cab felt wrong, like it was too thick, too heavy. I scanned the cab again, checked the mirrors, the footwell, the sleeper cabin. Nothing. Empty. But then, a sound. Soft. Barely a whisper. Coming from the sleeper curtain. It was closed. Just slightly. A few inches of darkness beyond the fabric. I swallowed hard. Something inside me screamed not to check. But I had to. Had to be sure. I reached out, fingers trembling, and grabbed the edge of the curtain. Pulled it back. And something looked back at me. A face. Pale. Sunken eyes. Mouth stretched too wide, too sharp. Like a man trying to mimic a smile but getting it wrong. The worst part? It wasn't sitting in the sleeper cabin. It was crawling on the ceiling. Head twisted upside down. Grinning. Waiting. I slammed the door shut. Ran. Didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I was inside my truck, locking the doors. I threw it into gear. Hit the gas. My headlights swept over the abandoned truck one last time. And standing beside it now was him, watching me leave. I drove for 2 hours straight. Didn't stop. Didn't slow down. When I finally pulled into a rest stop, I was shaking so hard I could barely park. I took a deep breath. Tried to calm myself. Told myself I had imagined it. Until I glanced at my passenger seat and saw it. Another red envelope. I stared at it, heart hammering. I didn't want to open it. Didn't want to see what it said. But I had to. With trembling fingers, I peeled it open. Inside was a new note. Same handwriting. Same careful strokes. Next time, you won't get away. I don't take that highway anymore. And I never stop for abandoned trucks. Because now I know, some drivers never leave their rigs. And some of them are still inside. I saw the first one at exactly 2:30 a.m. A man standing at the edge of the road. Not moving. Not hitchhiking. Just watching. I'd been driving through a long stretch of wooded highway. No houses. No lights. Just an endless, twisting road cutting through dense, suffocating darkness. It had been hours since I'd seen another vehicle. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Then, my headlights caught movement. A figure, tall, still, standing just past the tree line, its face hidden in shadow, and as I drove past, its head turned to follow me. My hands tightened on the wheel. It was nothing, I told myself. Just some drifter, maybe, a hiker, lost in the woods. But something about the way he stood there, staring, unmoving, it made my skin crawl. And then, a mile later, I saw another. Same stance, same tilted head, same dark, shadowed eyes. And this time, when I passed, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. His mouth moved, just a fraction, like he was muttering something under his breath, but I was going too fast to hear. I checked my mirrors. Nothing. No one behind me. No signs of the first man. Just empty road stretching back into darkness. I exhaled sharply, forcing my grip to loosen on the wheel. But the feeling wouldn't leave. That creeping, gnawing certainty that I was being watched. And then, up ahead, something was lying in the middle of the road. I slammed the brakes. My tires screeched against the asphalt. My headlights cut through the night, illuminating the figure sprawled across the pavement. A body, face down, motionless. My stomach twisted. This was a setup. I'd heard stories of people staging accidents to get truckers to stop. Then they jump you, rob you, or worse. But as I sat there, gripping the wheel, something about this felt wrong. This didn't feel like an ambush. It felt like a trap. I flicked on my high beams, scanned the area, checked my mirrors. No one, no movement, just me, my truck, and the body in the road, waiting. I clenched my jaw. I wasn't getting out. I wasn't going to be that guy in the horror movie. So I decided, I'd drive around it. I edged my truck forward. Slowly, my tires crept along the yellow lines. I passed the body, giving it as much space as possible. Didn't take my eyes off it. Didn't breathe. Didn't blink. And then, in my side mirror, the body moved. A slow, sickening motion. It didn't get up normally. Didn't push itself off the ground like a person waking from sleep. It rose all at once, like something pulling up a puppet by its strings, lifting straight up, spine stiff, head snapping toward my truck. And then, it started running. I floored it. My truck roared forward. I didn't look back, didn't check my mirrors. I just drove, faster than I ever had, heart hammering, breath ragged, because I knew if I looked, I'd see them, all of them, standing at the edge of the road, watching, waiting. I didn't stop until I reached a crowded truck stop. Didn't sleep that night, didn't even get out of my truck, just sat there, thinking about that thing in the road, the way it had moved, the way the others had been waiting for me to see them, like it was a game, like they had done this before. And then, I noticed it, sitting on my passenger seat, a red envelope. I picked it up, hands shaking. The paper was warm. I peeled it open. Inside was a single note, written in small, careful handwriting. You were supposed to stop. I don't take that route anymore. Don't slow down for bodies in the road. And I never stop, because now I understand. They're still waiting. And next time, they'll make sure I stop. I heard the first tap around 3:10 a.m. Soft, deliberate, right against my passenger side window. I had pulled over at a small, empty rest area somewhere deep in the mountains. Nothing but a single street light, 2 vending machines, and silence. I was exhausted. My eyes were starting to burn, and I figured I could shut them for just a bit before continuing my haul. I killed the engine, leaned back in my seat, checked my mirrors. Nothing, just my truck, the empty lot, and the trees. Then, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Soft, rhythmic, like fingertips against glass. My breath caught, because my truck was tall, too tall for someone to just reach the window. And yet, the tapping continued. Tap, tap, tap. I sat up, scanned my mirrors again. Still nothing. But that didn't make sense, because someone had to be there, right outside, tapping. I flicked on my passenger side light. The window was black, not tinted black, not shadowed black. Something was covering it, something pressed against the glass. I felt a cold chill crawl up my spine. Then, a voice. Hey. Low. Amused. Right next to me. My hands shook as I reached for the keys. Fumbled. Missed. Then, bang. Something slammed against the glass. I jumped. Heart pounding. The entire truck shook. I turned my head, and for a split second, I saw it. A face. Pressed against the window. Too pale. Too stretched. Mouth pulled too wide. Too thin. Smiling. Teeth too white. Too many of them. And the eyes. Dark. Empty. Wrong. I twisted the key, and my truck roared to life. The second my headlights flashed on, the tapping stopped. The face was gone. The window was clear. But my stomach turned to ice. Because there, on the glass, was a handprint. Still fresh. Still smudging down the surface. Like something had just melted away. I didn't think. Didn't hesitate. I threw the truck into gear and peeled out of the rest stop. Didn't check my mirrors. Didn't look back. Just drove. Fast. As fast as my rig could take me. 15 minutes later, my breathing had almost steadied. I told myself it had been a prank. Just some drifter messing with me. But then, my CB radio crackled to life. And a voice, low and distorted, whispered, "Why didn't you let me in?" I nearly swerved off the road. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the mic. Who is this? Static. Silence. Then, faintly, laughter. I turned off the CB. Didn't want to hear another word. Didn't want to know who or what was on the other end. But the worst part? I wasn't alone. My rearview mirror. Something was wrong. My sleeper cab curtain was slightly open. Just an inch. Just enough to see darkness beyond it. And in that darkness, something was moving. I felt my stomach drop. I had been alone this entire drive. Hadn't picked up any passengers. Hadn't let anyone in. So why? Was my curtain open? I reached for my phone. Turned on the camera. Slowly, carefully, I lifted it, aimed it toward the mirror, and took a picture. My hands were shaking as I looked at the screen. At first, I thought it was just shadows. Just my mind playing tricks on me. But then, I saw it. A face. Peeking from behind the curtain. Eyes too wide. Smile too sharp. Like it had been there the entire time. I slammed the brakes. Swung the door open and jumped out of the cab. Didn't care about my truck. Didn't care about anything else. Just ran into the road. Heart pounding. Breath ragged. The highway was empty. No cars. No people. Just me. And my truck. Idling in the middle of the road. The cab light was still on. And the curtain? Still open. But now, there was nothing behind it. I forced myself to breathe. Told myself I was being paranoid. I grabbed my phone again. Checked the picture. And there it was. Still there. Still watching me. And below the face, something I hadn't noticed before. A hand. Holding something red. A red envelope. I never checked inside. Never drove that route again. And now, every time I pull my sleeper curtain closed, I double-check the lock. Because I know, something got in that night. And next time, I might not be so lucky.